Hello everyone, and welcome back to When She Broke Us channel. Today, we have an incredible story, one that's dark, emotional, and shocking. It's a story about betrayal, humiliation, and the kind of heartbreak that leaves scars you can't see. We're sitting down with a man whose story will take you through a whirlwind of emotions, and I promise you, this is one you won't be able to look away from. From the first moment, through the betrayal, to the shocking aftermath, this is raw, unfiltered truth. So sit tight, make sure you're not alone for this one, and hear it straight from him. Let's start at the beginning. Can you tell us your name and a little about yourself, and then share your story with us?
I found the receipt on a Tuesday morning, tucked between the pages of Sarah's book on the nightstand. The one she'd been reading for 3 months without finishing. $847 at a boutique hotel in Scottsdale. Dated 2 weeks ago. The same Tuesday she'd told me she was working late on the Henderson account. I held it there, this thin slip of paper that weighed nothing and everything simultaneously, and my first thought wasn't anger or even hurt. It was almost clinical. So this is how it happens. Like watching a bridge collapse on the news, that moment when physics overrides faith and everything falls exactly as the equations predicted. We'd been married for 6 years. Together for 9. Sarah Mitchell. Sarah Brennan when I met her at that tedious networking event in downtown Portland, where she'd made a joke about the cheap wine that made me laugh hard enough to spill mine. She was an art director at a marketing firm. I was a software architect, the kind who still got excited about elegant code but had learned to pretend I didn't at parties. We had a 3-bedroom house in Beaverton with a mortgage we could actually afford. A golden retriever named Canes, her economist father's idea of humor, and most of what people call happiness. Or so I thought. I put the receipt back exactly where I found it, my hands steadier than they should have been. $747. Oddly specific. I wondered if she'd ordered room service, what she'd eaten, if she'd laughed at something he said while sitting on sheets I hadn't paid for. I wondered if I was already thinking about this wrong, building narratives from insufficient data like a junior developer hard-coding assumptions. "You're up early," Sarah said from the doorway, and I flinched hard enough to knock her book off the nightstand. She was wearing my old Stanford t-shirt, the one from the hackathon where I'd met Marcus, my business partner. Her hair was pulled back in that messy way that somehow always looked perfect on her. "Couldn't sleep?" I said, bending to retrieve the book. The receipt stayed hidden inside. "Big presentation today. The fintech thing?" "Yeah." I hadn't mentioned any presentation. She hadn't noticed. She crossed the room and kissed my forehead, and I caught her scent. That expensive perfume I'd bought her for Christmas mixed with something else. Something I couldn't identify. "You'll kill it. You always do." Then she was moving past me, already scrolling through her phone. A small smile playing at her lips. "What's funny?" I asked. "Just Rachel being Rachel." She turned the screen toward me briefly. A meme about office meetings, something bland and shareable. "She wants to do dinner Friday." The usual crew. Rachel, Sarah's best friend since college. Rachel with her practiced laugh and strategic compliments, who'd somehow convinced Sarah that her old friends were dragging her down, and that I was sweet but limiting her potential. I'd heard that last part secondhand from Marcus's wife, Emma, who'd been frozen out of Sarah's inner circle around the same time. "Sure," I said. "Sounds great." Didn't sound great. Friday dinners with Rachel, Nina, and Veronica had become increasingly tense affairs where I felt like a defendant in a trial conducted in a language I didn't quite speak. They'd ask pointed questions about my career trajectory, why I was still doing startup stuff instead of taking a real job at Amazon or Microsoft. They'd mention friends' husbands who'd made VP by 35, who had lake houses, who traveled business class. Sarah used to defend me. Then she'd started staying quiet. Then she'd started nodding. "I should get ready," she said, heading toward the bathroom. "Early meeting. The Henderson account?" She paused just for a second. "Yeah. Clients being difficult. Seems like that's been happening a lot lately. Welcome to marketing." She closed the bathroom door, and I heard the shower start. I sat on our bed, the one we'd picked out together at that Scandinavian furniture store, arguing playfully about firmness levels, and tried to remember when we'd last had sex. 3 weeks? 4? She'd been tired. I've been tired. It had stopped feeling like an absence and started feeling like a relief, which maybe should have worried me more than it did. My phone buzzed. Marcus. Coffee before work? Got something to show you. Can't today. Rain check. You've been saying that for 2 weeks, man. Everything okay? I stared at the message. Marcus had been my closest friend since sophomore year, when we'd stayed up for 36 hours straight trying to debug a neural network for our AI class. He'd been the best man at my wedding. He'd introduced me to Emma, who'd introduced us to this whole world of couples game nights and weekend hikes, and all the scaffolding that keeps adult friendship from collapsing under the weight of mortgages and calendars. Yeah, all good. Just busy. Next week for sure. The shower stopped. I heard Sarah humming something. Was it that song from the boutique hotel bar? Did boutique hotels in Scottsdale have bars? I realized I knew nothing about any of it, that I'd been living in my own head for so long that the physical world had started to feel theoretical. At work, I couldn't focus. Our startup, ClearPath Analytics, predictive modeling for financial firms, was at a critical juncture. We had 3 competing acquisition offers on the table, and I needed to build consensus among the founding team about which direction to take. Instead, I found myself Googling Boutique Hotel Scottsdale and falling down a rabbit hole of TripAdvisor reviews and Instagram geotags. The Sonoran Sky Resort. That's where the receipt was from. 5 stars. Perfect for romantic getaways. Stunning sunset views from the rooftop bar. A photo gallery full of couples gazing at each other over artfully arranged small plates. I clicked through to their booking page. The cheapest room was $425 a night, so she'd stayed 2 nights, or ordered a lot of room service. Or both. Jake. Priya, our CFO, was standing in my office doorway. The Goldman call starts in 5 minutes. You ready? Yeah, sorry. I closed the laptop. Let's do this. The call went well, or at least I think it did. I said the right things at the right times, laughed at the managing director's jokes, parried questions about our burn rate and customer retention. But I was performing it all from a distance, watching Jake Brennan, successful tech entrepreneur, play his role while the real me was somewhere else entirely, holding a receipt and counting days. After the call, Marcus cornered me in the kitchen. Our office was one of those converted warehouse spaces in the Pearl District, exposed brick, expensive coffee machine, craft beer on tap, designed to signal that we were the kind of startup that understood culture. You look like shit, Marcus said, pouring us both coffee. Thanks, I moisturize. I'm serious. What's going on? I thought about telling him. Marcus was a straight shooter, the kind of friend who'd say hard truths when you needed them. But what would I tell him? That I found a receipt? That my wife had been distant? That her friends didn't like me? It all sounded pathetic, circumstantial, the paranoid fantasies of a man who'd read too many Reddit threads about infidelity. Just stressed about the acquisition, I said. Big decision. He studied me for a long moment. You know I'm here, right? Whatever you need. I know. Emma misses Sarah. Says they haven't talked in weeks. Sarah's been busy with work. Right? He didn't sound convinced. Well, if you guys want to do dinner sometime, she's got plans Friday, with Rachel and that crew. Marcus made a face. Ah, the coven. Despite everything, I almost laughed. Emma called them that? Among other things. He hesitated. Look, I'm going to say something, and you can tell me to fuck off if you want. When has that ever stopped you? Those women are toxic. I know Sarah's been friends with Rachel forever, but ever since she started hanging out with them more, I don't know, man. Emma says Sarah's changed. Says she seems unhappy but won't talk about why. What else does Emma say? That maybe you should ask Sarah yourself instead of getting secondhand information from your business partner's wife. Solid advice. I'm full of it. He clapped my shoulder. Seriously though, communication, right? That's what all the marriage podcasts say. You listen to marriage podcasts? Emma makes me. They're surprisingly insightful. He grinned. Also surprisingly boring. It's a whole thing. After he left, I sat in my office and tried to imagine how that conversation would go. Hey Sarah, I found a receipt for a hotel in Scottsdale that you stayed at on a night you told me you were working late. Want to explain? And she'd say, What? What was the explanation that made this okay? Maybe it was innocent. A work trip she'd forgotten to mention. A gift for me she was hiding. A surprise party she was planning. I constructed elaborate alternative scenarios, each more improbable than the last, and realized I was doing exactly what I'd taught my team not to do. Fitting theories to desired outcomes instead of following the data. That night, Sarah came home late again. 30. She used to text when she'd be late. Now she just assumed I'd assume. "How was your day?" I asked. We were in the kitchen. This carefully designed space with white subway tiles and stainless steel appliances that we'd agonized over for weeks. It occurred to me that we'd spent more time choosing backsplash than we had talking in the last month. Exhausting. She kicked off her heels, those expensive ones from Nordstrom that she'd bought with her bonus. "Henderson account is imploding. Client hates the creative direction. Want to talk about it?" "Not really. Just want to decompress." She poured herself a large glass of white wine. "You eat yet?" "I was waiting for you." "Sweet. But I grabbed something at the office." She hadn't. I could tell by the way she immediately opened the fridge and started scanning contents. She was thinking about eating something but didn't want to admit she hadn't. "I could make pasta," I offered. "That aglio e olio you like." "I'm fine, really. Not that hungry." She took a long drink of wine. "Actually, I meant to tell you, Rachel invited me to this spa weekend thing. Next weekend. Someplace in Bend." And there it was. My stomach dropped, but I kept my voice level. "Next weekend." "Yeah, I know it's last minute, but Nina's going through stuff with Brad, and Rachel thought it would be good for all of us to decompress. It's just Friday to Monday morning." "That's not a weekend. That's 4 days." "Is that a problem?" Her tone shifted, defensive. "I've been working insane hours, Jake. I need a break." "I'm not saying you don't. I stopped. What was I saying? When did this come up?" "Today. Rachel just found out about a cancellation. Got a good rate. At a spa in Bend." "Yes. Why are you interrogating me?" "I'm not interrogating you. I'm asking basic questions about my wife disappearing for 4 days." "Disappearing? Jesus, dramatic much." She finished her wine, poured more. "You know what? Forget it. I'll tell her I can't go." "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." She was angry now, really angry, in that way that felt disproportionate to the conversation we were actually having. "You always do this. Make me feel guilty for wanting anything that doesn't include you. That's not fair. Isn't it? When's the last time I went anywhere with my friends? But you and Marcus do your coding marathons, your guys' nights, your startup bonding retreats. That's work. Is it? Because from where I stand, it looks like you've built this whole life around ClearPath, and I'm just supposed to be grateful you come home at all." I stared at her. This was new. Or maybe it wasn't. Maybe it had been building and I'd been too blind or too busy or too stupid to see it. "Sarah, if you're unhappy, I'm going to bed." She grabbed the wine bottle. "Enjoy your pasta." She left me standing in our designer kitchen, and I heard the bedroom door close with just enough force to make a point. Keynes padded over and leaned against my leg, and I scratched behind his ears while trying to remember when everything had started to crack. I didn't make pasta. I opened my laptop and started digging. Sarah's Instagram was mostly private, but I could see her recent likes. Photos from Rachel's account. A rooftop bar in Phoenix. Nina at something called the Desert Botanical Garden. Veronica with a caption about finding yourself in unexpected places. All posted 3 weeks ago, the same week as the Scottsdale receipt. They'd all been there, together. It wasn't an affair. It was girls' trip she'd hidden from me. Or was it? Maybe she'd met someone there, maybe the whole thing was cover, maybe I was connecting dots that formed no picture at all. I clicked through to Rachel's profile. Public, thank God. More photos from Arizona. The 4 of them, Sarah, Rachel, Nina, Veronica, at dinner, at the pool, hiking some Red Rock Trail. Sarah was laughing in every photo, her head thrown back, her whole body loose in a way I hadn't seen in months. In the last photo, there was a man in the background. Just partially visible, but definitely there. Dark hair, good suit, holding a drink. I zoomed in until the pixels blurred, trying to make him into something concrete, something I could understand or fight or fix. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Tomorrow. 10 a.m. The coffee shop on 23rd and Burnside. Come alone. I stared at it for a full minute, my mouth dry. Then I replied. Who is this? 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then nothing. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed next to Sarah, listening to her breathe, wondering if she was really asleep or just pretending, wondering what version of her existed in those Arizona photos, wondering who'd sent me that text and what they were going to tell me that I both desperately needed and desperately feared to know. At 9:45 the next morning, I was sitting in the coffee shop, watching the door. I told work I had a dentist appointment. I told Sarah I was going in early for a meeting. I was getting good at lying, I realized. Good at building alternate narratives. The door opened, and my heart stopped. It was Veronica. She saw me, nodded, and ordered a coffee before sliding into the seat across from me. Veronica Young, Rachel's work friend, the newest addition to Sarah's inner circle. Mid-30s, always impeccably dressed, with this way of looking at you that suggested she was calculating something just beneath the conversation. Thanks for coming, she said. Thanks for the cryptic text. Very Jason Bourne. She didn't smile. I thought about not saying anything. Probably should have stayed out of it. But Emma reached out to me. Emma? Marcus's Emma. We worked together a few years ago. She called me yesterday, said you seemed off. Asked if I knew anything about what was going on with Sarah. Veronica stirred her coffee methodically. I told her I couldn't talk about it, but I've been thinking about it all night, and fuck it. You deserve to know. Know what? Rachel's been trying to convince Sarah to leave you. The words hung there, clear and devastating. I'd suspected it, feared it, but hearing it confirmed was different. Worse. How long? My voice sounded strange. Couple months, maybe more. It started subtle comments about whether you were the one, questions about what Sarah wanted from life. Then it got more aggressive. Rachel's going through her own divorce, and I think she's in that mindset where everyone else's relationship is also doomed. Veronica met my eyes. The Scottsdale trip was supposed to be the final push. So there's no one else? No. I mean, not that I know of. But that's almost worse, right? She's considering blowing up her marriage not because she's in love with someone else, but because Rachel's convinced her she should want more. More than what? More than you. She said it flatly. Rachel's been painting this picture of Sarah's wasted potential, that she could be doing bigger things, dating more successful men, living a more glamorous life. Nina and we've pushed back, but Rachel's persistent. Why are you telling me this? Because I like Sarah, and I think she's making a huge mistake, but she won't listen to anyone who disagrees with Rachel right now. Veronica leaned forward. There's something else. Rachel's planning another trip. Next weekend. That spa thing? It's not a spa. It's a divorce attorney's office in Bend. She's got Sarah an appointment with her own lawyer. The room tilted. Jesus Christ. Rachel thinks if she can get Sarah to file while you're in the dark, it'll be cleaner, quicker. She's been coaching her through it. What to document, what to say, how to protect her assets. Her assets? We built everything together. I know, but Rachel's in full scorched earth mode with her own divorce, and she's projected all of that onto Sarah's situation. Veronica's expression softened slightly. Look, I don't know if this is salvageable. Maybe Sarah really does want out. But I think she deserves to make that decision without Rachel playing puppet master. What am I supposed to do with this information? Whatever you think is right. I've said my piece. She stood. For what it's worth, I think you're getting screwed. But I also think Sarah's confused more than she is cruel. She's not a bad person, Jake. She's just listening to the wrong people. After she left, I sat there for another hour, watching the morning crowd filter through. Young professionals on laptops, students with textbooks, couples sharing pastries and easy laughter. All these ordinary people living their ordinary lives while mine quietly disintegrated. I called Marcus. Remember how you said you were here for whatever I needed? Of course. Can you and Emma come over tonight? After Sarah goes to bed? I need to talk to someone before I completely lose my shit. They came at 10. Sarah had taken a sleeping pill and gone down early, exhausted from another difficult day at work. We sat in the living room, the one we decorated together, every piece chosen with care and compromise, and I told them everything. Emma looked like she wanted to cry. Marcus looked like he wanted to punch someone. "That manipulative bitch," Emma said, and I'd never heard her sound so angry. I knew Rachel was toxic, but this is next level. "What are you going to do?" Marcus asked. "I don't know. If I confront Sarah, she'll just deny it or get defensive. If I wait for this Ben trip, I'm just letting Rachel pull the strings." I rubbed my face. I thought about beating her to it, filing first, but that feels like giving up. Maybe. Emma started then stopped. "Okay, this might sound crazy. At this point, I'll take crazy. What if you go with her? To Bend? She's not going to let me tag along to her girls' trip. No, I mean secretly. Follow her. See what's really happening. Because here's the thing, we only have Veronica's word about the lawyer. What if she's wrong? What if there's another explanation? Emma, I can't just stalk my wife." "Why not?" Marcus said. "If she's really planning to divorce you, you need evidence. If she's not, you need to know what's actually going on. Either way, sitting here in the dark is killing you." They were right. I could feel it, the truth of it settling into my bones. I'd spent weeks in this passive agony, letting things happen to me. Maybe it was time to take back some agency, even if that agency looked like a desperate man following his wife to a fake spa weekend. "Okay," I said. "Okay, let's say I do this. How do I even?" "Leave that to us," Emma said, and something in her smile reminded me why she'd been so successful in her marketing career. "We'll help you plan this out. But Jake, you have to be ready for whatever you find." The next few days were a masterclass in sustained deception. I played the supportive husband, told Sarah I hoped she had a great time at the spa, even gave her cash for any extras. Meanwhile, Emma was booking me a room at a hotel near the law office Veronica had mentioned, and Marcus was teaching me how to use a GPS tracker. Technically illegal, he reminded me, but so is planning a secret divorce. Thursday night, Sarah packed. I watched her fold clothes, nice ones, not spa casual, and load them into the same suitcase she'd taken to Scottsdale. She was humming again, that same tune I couldn't place. "You seem excited," I said from the doorway. "I am. I really need this break." She zipped the suitcase. "Nina's going through it with Brad. I think this weekend will be good for her." "What's going on with them?" "Oh, the usual stuff. He works too much. She feels neglected." She said it casually, but I heard the parallel. Sometimes people just grow apart. That's sad. It's realistic. She met my eyes. "Not everything lasts forever, Jake. Sometimes the kindest thing is to let go before you damage each other." "Are we talking about Nina and Brad?" "I'm talking in general." But she looked away. I should finish packing. Friday morning, I kissed her goodbye like it was any other day. She drove off in her Prius at 7 a.m., heading east toward Bend. I waited 30 minutes, then loaded my own bag into the car. Marcus had agreed to cover for me at work, telling everyone I had a family emergency. "Be careful," he'd said, "and call me if you need anything. Like, I don't know, bail money." "You think I'll end up in jail?" "I think you're following your potentially soon-to-be ex-wife to confront her about divorce proceedings she doesn't know you know about. So yeah, maybe pack a toothbrush." The drive to Bend took 3 hours. I spent most of it imagining scenarios, each one worse than the last. By the time I reached my hotel, a Best Western 2 blocks from the law office, I was exhausted from my own thoughts. I checked in, dumped my bag, and drove to the address Veronica had given me. It was real. Hendricks and Associates, family law. A modest brick building with too much parking and a discreet sign. I sat across the street, waiting. At 2 p.m., Rachel's BMW pulled up. My heart hammered. The doors opened, and out came Rachel, Nina, and Veronica. But no Sarah. I watched them walk into the building, confusion warring with relief. Had I gotten it wrong? Was Sarah not part of this after all? Then, 15 minutes later, another car arrived. Sarah's Prius. She sat in the driver's seat for a long moment, her hands on the wheel, and even from across the street I could see her crying. She wiped her face, took a deep breath, and got out of the car, and walked right past the law office. I followed her on foot, keeping my distance. She went 2 blocks down, turned a corner, and entered a small art gallery. Through the window, I saw her greet a man. Mid-40s, silver-haired, wearing an expensive suit. They hugged. Not a romantic hug, but familiar, warm. They sat down in the back of the gallery, and he handed her some papers. She looked at them for a long time, then said something that made him laugh. He touched her hand, just briefly, and then they were talking. Couldn't breathe. This was it. This was the thing I'd been afraid of, the answer to all my questions. She was having an affair with this gallery owner or art dealer or whoever he was. The divorce planning, the secret trips, the distance, it all made sense now. Except she was still crying. And he wasn't holding her like a lover. He was holding her like a father would. I found myself walking toward the gallery before I'd decided to move. The bell above the door chimed, and they both looked up. Sarah's face went through about 5 emotions in 2 seconds. Shock, fear, guilt, confusion, and finally, inexplicably, relief. "Jake," she said. "Oh my God. Jake, what are you? How did you?" "I followed you. No point in lying. I thought I found the Scottsdale receipt. And I thought, you thought I was having an affair." She said it flatly. "Yes." The man stood, extending his hand. "James Chen. I'm Sarah's father." The world stopped making sense. Her father? But Sarah's father is dead. "I know." James smiled sadly. "That's what Sarah's been told her whole life. What Margaret wanted her to believe." I looked at Sarah. She was crying again, but differently now. "My mom lied to me, Jake. My whole life. My dad's been alive this whole time, living in Phoenix, and she erased him." James gestured to the papers on the table. Divorce decree from 1989. Restraining order Margaret filed claiming I was dangerous. All falsified. I've been trying to reconnect with Sarah for years, but Margaret blocked every attempt. He looked at his daughter with such raw love that I had to glance away. 3 months ago, I hired a private investigator who finally tracked Sarah down. We've been meeting secretly, rebuilding our relationship. "Scottsdale," I said stupidly. "That's where he lives." Rachel and the others came for support. They've known about this since the beginning. Sarah stood, cross to me. "I wanted to tell you so many times, but I didn't know how. How do you tell your husband that your entire family history is a lie? That your mother is this person you never really knew?" So the distance, the secrets, the mood swings, were all about processing this. About learning that my dad didn't abandon me, that he's been looking for me for 30 years. About realizing my mother has been lying to me about something this fundamental. Her voice broke. "I've been falling apart, Jake, and I couldn't figure out how to let you in. I should have felt relief, joy even, but instead I felt hollow." "And the divorce lawyer? Rachel booked you an appointment." Sarah's face changed. "What?" "Veronica told me. The whole reason I followed you here. Rachel's been trying to convince you to leave me, and she made you an appointment with her divorce attorney." "That's..." Sarah looked genuinely shocked. "No, Rachel wouldn't." "She would." Veronica's voice came from the doorway. She'd apparently followed the same trail I had. "I told Jake everything 3 days ago. I'm sorry, Sarah. I know I should have told you first, but I was trying to stop you from making a mistake." "What mistake?" "I'm not getting divorced." "You're not." Veronica and I said it simultaneously. "No. Jesus. Where would you get that idea?" "From Rachel." Veronica pulled out her phone, scrolled through messages. "Look, she told Nina and me she'd finally convinced you, that you were ready to start fresh and stop settling. She said this weekend was when you were going to make it official." Sarah snatched the phone, read the messages, and her face went pale. Then read. That manipulative psychotic. She looked at me. Jake, I need you to believe me. I was never planning to leave you. Rachel's been pushing that narrative for months, but I kept telling her no. I love you. Even when I was distant. Even when I was drowning in this family shit. I always loved you. Then why did you let her make the appointment? I didn't. I had no idea. She broke off, understanding dawning. Oh my God. The spa weekend. It was never a spa weekend. Was it? Hendricks and Associates. Rachel, Nina, and Veronica are there right now. Presumably filling out divorce paperwork for you. That fucking... Sarah grabbed her purse. I need to go. Now. We all went. James drove since he knew Bend, and during the short drive Sarah called Rachel 6 times. No answer. The law office was still open when we arrived. The receptionist looked confused as our unlikely group stormed past her. Rachel, Nina, and Veronica were in a conference room with a lawyer, paperwork spread across the table. Sarah, Rachel jumped up, beaming. You made it. I know we said 2:30, but I figured we could get started with the preliminaries. What the fuck is wrong with you? Rachel's smile faltered. What? This. All of this. Sarah gestured at the paperwork. I never agreed to any of this. I never said I wanted a divorce. But you said. I said I was struggling. I said I needed space to process some family stuff. I never said I wanted to end my marriage. Sarah's voice was shaking. You took my confusion and pain and twisted it into something it wasn't. You projected your own divorce nightmare onto my life and tried to make me live it. I was trying to help you see that you deserve better. Better than what? Than a husband who loves me? Who's been patient while I worked through shit? Who's been there even when I couldn't explain what I was going through? Sarah looked at me, her eyes full of tears. Jake's not perfect. Our marriage isn't perfect. But it's mine, Rachel. Mine to figure out. Not yours to sabotage. Nina was staring at the paperwork like she'd never seen it before. Wait. So you're not getting divorced? No. But Rachel said. Rachel lied. Veronica's voice was quiet. To all of us. I thought Sarah knew about this appointment. But Rachel set it up without her knowledge. Rachel's face had gone from confident to cornered. You're being dramatic. I was just giving you options. You forged my signature on initial documents. Sarah was holding up a form. This is my signature, Rachel. How did you? I practiced it. For the preliminary forms. I figured you'd just sign the real ones when you got here. That's fraud, the lawyer said, standing abruptly. Ms. Hendricks, I was told the client was aware of this meeting. She was supposed to be. Rachel's composure was cracking. Look, Sarah's been unhappy for months. She talks about how Jake doesn't understand her, how she feels trapped. I talked about struggling with family revelations that I couldn't share yet. I talked about feeling isolated because I was keeping this massive secret. That's not the same as wanting out of my marriage. Sarah looked exhausted. I thought you were my friend. I am your friend. That's why I'm trying to save you from wasting your best years on a man who what? Works hard? Loves me? Gives me space when I need it? Those are problems to you. Sarah shook her head. You know what I think? I think you're so miserable in your own divorce that you can't stand to see anyone else happy. So you tried to burn down my marriage to keep you company in the ashes. The silence that followed was crushing. Nina was crying quietly. Veronica looked like she wanted to disappear. The lawyer was gathering papers with the urgency of someone who just realized they'd walked into a liability nightmare. Rachel's face had gone hard. Fine. You want to throw away your potential for some mediocre tech bro? Go ahead. But don't come crying to me in 5 years when you're still in the same place, still drowning in his ordinary little life. Get out, Sarah said quietly. What? Get of my life. We're done. Rachel grabbed her purse, her hands shaking with rage. You'll regret this. The only thing I regret is not seeing you for what you are sooner. Sarah stood firm as Rachel stormed out, Nina trailing awkwardly behind. Veronica stayed. I'm sorry. I should have. You tried to warn Jake. You did more than you had to. Sarah's anger had drained away, leaving only exhaustion. Thank you. We left the law office in a daze. James insisted on buying us all dinner, and we ended up at a steakhouse on the edge of town, this unlikely family unit processing the wreckage of the day. So, James said after the waiter took our orders, I'm the father who came back from the dead. Veronica's the friend who played informant, and you're the husband who tracked his wife across the state because he thought she was having an affair. We should start a podcast. Despite everything, I laughed. Sarah did too, and then she was laughing and crying simultaneously, and I pulled her against me while she shook. I'm so sorry, she said into my shoulder. I should have told you about my dad from the beginning. I should have trusted you. I should have asked why you were pulling away instead of assuming the worst. You weren't entirely wrong to assume. I was pulling away. I just didn't know how to explain that my entire childhood was a lie. James cleared his throat. If it helps, I can explain some of the backstory. Maybe it'll make more sense. Over dinner, he told us everything. How he and Margaret had married young, too young. How she'd struggled with paranoia and control issues that got worse after Sarah was born. How she'd accused him of affairs, of plotting to take Sarah away, of things that existed only in her mind. How one day he came home to an empty house and divorce papers claiming he'd been abusive, claims that were completely fabricated but impossible to disprove. The restraining order meant I couldn't contact Sarah directly. Your mother moved 3 times in 5 years, always changing your school, your last name. By the time the restraining order expired, you'd vanished completely. He looked at his daughter with such profound sadness. I never stopped looking. I hired investigators, checked social media, sent birthday cards to every address I could find. Nothing ever reached you. Mom told me you left when I was 2, that you didn't want kids, didn't want the responsibility. Sarah's voice was small. She showed me a letter you supposedly wrote, saying you needed to find yourself, and that we were holding you back. I wrote you hundreds of letters. None of them said that. The food came, but none of us had much appetite. Veronica, who'd been quiet through most of this, finally spoke. I'm sorry I kept this from you initially, Jake. When Sarah told us about finding her dad, she made us promise not to say anything until she figured out how to tell you. I honored that promise until I realized Rachel was weaponizing Sarah's vulnerability. How long have you known about Rachel's plan? I asked. 2 weeks, maybe? She started getting more aggressive with the divorce talk after the Scottsdale trip. I think seeing Sarah reconnect with her father made Rachel realize she was losing influence. Veronica pushed food around her plate. Nina and I tried to push back, but Rachel's very persuasive. She has this way of making you doubt your own judgment. She's toxic, Sarah said flatly, and I was too blind to see it because we've been friends since college. Since before she became this person. People change, James said gently. Sometimes not for the better. We drove back to Portland that night. All of us. Sarah wanted to leave immediately, couldn't stand the thought of staying in Bend another minute. James followed in his own car, and Veronica came with us, too anxious to face Rachel and Nina at whatever accommodation they'd booked. It was nearly midnight when we pulled into our driveway. The house looked exactly as we'd left it that morning, but everything felt different. Transformed. Inside, Sarah collapsed onto the couch. Keynes immediately jumped up beside her, sensing distress, and she buried her face in his fur. I don't even know where to start processing this, she said. My best friend tried to destroy my marriage. My father's alive. My mother is either deeply mentally ill or just evil. And my husband thought I was cheating on him. She looked up at me. That's the part that kills me most. That I let things get so bad you believed I could do that. I didn't want to believe it. I built elaborate alternative explanations. I sat beside her. But the evidence kept piling up, and you kept pulling away, and I didn't know how to reach you. I thought I was protecting you. From my mess. From my confusion. From all the ugly emotions I was having about my mother. She took my hand. I've been so angry, Jake. At her, at the universe, at myself for not seeing through her lies sooner. And I took that anger and turned it inward. Shut everyone out. Especially you. Why especially me? Because you're the person I care most about hurting. It felt safer to push you away than risk you seeing me fall apart. James had settled into the armchair, looking exhausted. Veronica was in the kitchen making tea, giving us space while staying close enough to be supportive. Can I ask something? I said. The week trip Rachel mentioned, the one that was supposed to start today. Was that real? No. I mean, Rachel pitched it as a spa weekend, but I'd already told her I couldn't do 4 days. I agreed to just Friday to Monday morning, and even then, I was planning to spend most of it with my dad. Sarah squeezed my hand. I was going to tell you about him this weekend. Really. I'd finally worked up the courage. What changed? I realized I was more afraid of losing you than of you seeing me vulnerable. Rachel kept saying you wouldn't understand, that you'd judge my mother or think less of me for having this damaged family history. But I know you better than that. She paused. Or I should. I should have trusted what I know instead of what Rachel was feeding me. Veronica brought tea, and we all sat there in exhausted silence for a while. Eventually, James spoke. Sarah, I don't want to overstep, but if you want to confront your mother about this. I do. I need to. She looked at me. Will you come with me? Of course. Maybe not tonight, though, Veronica said with a slight smile. It's after midnight, and you all look like you're about to collapse. She was right. We set James up in the guest room, and Veronica took the couch despite our protests. Sarah and I went to our bedroom, and for the first time in months we just held each other. I missed this, she whispered. I missed you. I'm right here. I know. But I missed you anyway. We didn't have sex that night. We didn't need to. We just lay there, her head on my chest, my fingers in her hair, breathing together like we were learning how again. The next morning, Sarah called her mother. I heard it from the kitchen where I was making coffee. Sarah's voice cold and controlled in a way I'd never heard before. We need to talk. Today. I'm coming over, and I'm bringing Jake and someone else. No, I don't care if you have plans. This is happening. Margaret lived in Lake Oswego, in one of those expensive condos overlooking the water that she'd bought with her inheritance. Sarah had always been vague about their relationship. They talked weekly but weren't close, saw each other on holidays but without warmth. Now I understood why. We drove over that afternoon. James came too, though he stayed in the car initially. Let Sarah control how this unfolds, he said. This is her confrontation, not mine. Margaret answered the door with her usual tight smile. She was 62 but looked 50, maintained by yoga and Botox and whatever else wealthy white women did to hold back time. Her smile faltered when she saw me. Jacob, what a surprise. Sarah, you didn't mention. Mom, we need to talk about Dad. The color drained from Margaret's face. Your father is dead. No, he's not. He's alive. He's been alive this whole time. And you knew it. Sarah, I don't know what you're talking about. Stop. Sarah's voice cracked like a whip. I've met him. Multiple times. I've seen the court documents, the restraining order you filed with false accusations, the divorce decree. I know everything. Margaret's mouth opened and closed. Then she seemed to gather herself, and her expression hardened into something ugly. He told you his version, I'm sure. Did he mention the drinking, the rages, the way he'd disappear for days without explanation? There was no drinking, no rages. The court found no evidence of any of your claims. Courts get things wrong all the time. Mom, Sarah's voice broke. Why? Why did you do this? And then Margaret said something I wasn't expecting. Because he was going to leave me. I could feel it. He was pulling away, staying late at work, talking about needing space. I knew it was only a matter of time before he filed for divorce and tried to take you away from me. So you beat him to it. Took me away from him first. I did what I had to do to protect you. Protect me? You stole my father. You made me grow up thinking I wasn't wanted. That I was some burden he couldn't wait to escape. Sarah was shaking. Do you have any idea what that does to a kid? To spend your whole life wondering why you weren't enough. You had me. You had a good life. I gave you everything. Accept the truth. Margaret's face contorted. The truth? You want the truth? Fine. I was 24 years old, stuck in a marriage with a man who was already checking out, with a screaming infant and no career and no options. Yes, I lied. Yes, I exaggerated. But I did it because I knew if I didn't, I'd end up alone with nothing while he got to walk away free. She turned to me. You understand, don't you, Jacob? Sometimes you have to protect yourself first. By poisoning your daughter against her father for 30 years? By ensuring she had a stable home and financial security. Built on lies, Sarah said. Everything was built on lies. Better lies than poverty. Better lies than sharing custody with a man who was one bad day away from leaving us anyway. Margaret's eyes were bright with unshed tears. Of anger or regret. I couldn't tell. You think you understand, Sarah, but you don't. You've never had to make those kinds of choices. You're right. I've never had to choose between my integrity and my comfort. And I never will, because I'm nothing like you. The words hung there, brutal and final. If that's how you feel, Margaret started. It is. I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive you for this. But I do know that I can't have you in my life right now. Maybe not ever. Sarah pulled an envelope from her purse. James is in the car outside. These are documents he wanted me to give you, stuff related to back child support and Sarah's college fund that you claimed you paid for, but he actually did. His lawyer will be in touch. Margaret took the envelope with trembling hands. You're choosing him over me. I'm choosing the truth. And right now, you represent 30 years of lies. We left her standing in her expensive condo, and I felt Sarah shaking as we walked to the car. James got out when he saw us coming, and Sarah walked straight into his arms and cried like the child she'd never gotten to be around him. The weeks that followed were strange and difficult. Sarah started therapy, intensive, twice-weekly sessions where she unpacked decades of manipulation and gaslighting. I joined her sometimes, couples counseling to work through the trust issues we'd both been carrying. Rachel tried to contact Sarah multiple times. Apologetic texts at first, then angry ones, then a bizarre email claiming she'd been trying to save Sarah from making my same mistakes her mother had. Sarah blocked her on everything. Nina reached out separately to apologize. She genuinely believed Sarah wanted the divorce, had trusted Rachel's interpretation of events. Sarah accepted the apology but wasn't ready to resume the friendship. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. Veronica remained in our lives, though. She felt guilty about her role in everything, but Sarah insisted she'd done the right thing by telling me. You're the reason we're still together, Sarah said at dinner one night. The three of us plus James, who'd temporarily relocated to Portland to be close to his daughter. If Jake had gone to Bend without knowing what Rachel was planning, if he'd just seen me at that law office without context, I would have assumed the worst, I finished, and probably done something stupid. Like what? James asked, amused. I don't know. Served her with divorce papers when she got home? Moved out? In my head, I had this whole revenge fantasy planned out. She'd come back from her trip to an empty house and divorce documents on the table. Sarah flinched. That would have destroyed me. I know. Thank God Veronica gave me the full story first. Speaking of which, Veronica said, I ran into Rachel yesterday, at the grocery store. We all tensed. She looked awful, like she hasn't slept in weeks. She tried to talk to me, but I just walked away. Veronica shook her head. Part of me feels bad for her. She's clearly spiraling. But then I remember what she tried to do, and she made her choices, Sarah said firmly. Just like my mother did. I can have compassion for people's pain without letting them weaponize it against me. It was a lesson she was learning in therapy, one she repeated like a mantra. Boundaries, self-protection, the difference between empathy and complicity. Work became complicated for a while. The acquisition negotiations heated up right as I was dealing with personal crisis, and I nearly tanked an important meeting because I was so distracted. Marcus covered for me, took on more than his share, never complained. You'd do the same for me, he said when I tried to thank him. I hope I never have to. Emma and I are solid. But yeah, if things ever go sideways, I know you've got me. It was mid-December when things finally started to feel normal again. Or not normal, we'd never get back to what we'd had before, because that relationship had been built on incomplete information and unaddressed distance. But we were building something new, something sturdier. Sarah and James had started a tradition of Sunday dinners. He'd taught her to make his mother's dumplings, and we'd spend hours in the kitchen, flour everywhere, laughing at our failed attempts to fold the wrappers correctly. Sometimes Veronica joined us, sometimes Emma and Marcus. The acquisition went through. We'd chosen the offer from the mid-sized firm that promised autonomy over the Silicon Valley giant that offered more money. Felt right, that choice. Prioritizing sustainability over flash. Sarah got promoted at work, taking on a creative director role that gave her more control and less direct interaction with difficult clients. She started painting again too, something she hadn't done since college. Our spare room slowly transformed into her studio, canvases stacked against walls, the smell of oils and turpentine mixing with her usual perfume. One Saturday morning, I found her sitting at her easel, working on a portrait. It was James, but younger, the father she'd never known, recreated from old photos he'd shown her. "It's beautiful," I said. "It's practice. I've lost so many years with him. I'm trying to fill in the gaps, even if it's just on canvas." She set down her brush. "Do you think I should reach out to my mother? Do you want to?" "I don't know. My therapist says I don't owe her anything, that I should only make contact if and when I'm ready. But she's still my mother, you know? And she's alone. She chose that. I know. But choosing to be alone and actually living with the consequences are different things." Sarah turned to face me. "What would you do?" "I can't answer that. It's not my trauma, not my decision. But you're my husband. Your opinion matters." "Then here's my opinion. I think you're more compassionate than Margaret deserves. But that compassion is part of what makes you who you are, and I don't want you to lose it, even for someone who hurt you this badly." I crossed to her, kissed the top of her head. "Whatever you decide, I support you. If you want to try to rebuild something with her, we'll do it carefully with boundaries. If you want to stay no contact, that's valid too." She leaned into me. "I don't think I'm ready yet. Maybe someday. But not now." Then not now. Christmas came. James joined us, and Emma and Marcus, and we had this loud, chaotic celebration that felt nothing like the quiet, tense holidays Sarah had grown up with. We played board games and drank too much wine, and Kane stole ham off the counter when no one was looking. Late that night, after everyone had left, Sarah and I sat by the tree. This real fir we'd cut down ourselves at a tree farm outside the city, and she said, "I'm happy. For the first time in months, maybe years, I'm actually happy." "Me too. Rachel was wrong, you know? About you, about us, about everything. This isn't a mediocre life. It's not settling." She took my hand. "It's real. It's ours." And I almost lost it because I couldn't see past my own confusion. We both almost lost it. I almost filed for divorce without even talking to you. But you didn't. You followed me instead. Which is either romantic or restraining order worthy, depending on how you look at it. I laughed. "Let's go with romantic." "Deal." We sat there in the glow of the Christmas lights, and I thought about how close we'd come to disaster. How easy it would have been to let Rachel's manipulation or my own fears or Sarah's mother's legacy tear us apart. How the same evidence could tell completely different stories depending on how you interpreted it. The receipt, the secret trips, the distance. In one version, it was an affair. In another, it was family trauma. Same facts, entirely different truth. "Jake." Sarah's voice was soft. "Thank you for not giving up on us. Even when I was giving you every reason to." I thought about it. In my darkest moments, I had it all planned out. The revenge, the dramatic exit, all of it. What stopped you? I thought about Veronica's warning. About Marcus and Emma's support. About that moment in the art gallery when I'd seen Sarah with her father and realized I'd built an entire narrative on assumptions. I guess I realized that marriage isn't just about trust. It's about choosing to trust again even after you're not sure you can. It's about investigating before sentencing. It's about, I struggled for the right words. It's about remembering that the person you love is complex and human and capable of having reasons you can't imagine. That's very evolved of you. My therapist helped. The one you insisted I start seeing. Best decision you never wanted to make? Top 5 easily. She kissed me then, and it felt different than it had in months. Not the desperate clinging of early reconciliation, but something steadier. More real. January brought new challenges. The acquisition closed, and suddenly I had a new boss, new expectations, new politics to navigate. Sarah's therapy uncovered deeper layers of childhood trauma. The parentification, the emotional manipulation, the ways Margaret had trained her to doubt her own perceptions. It explains so much, she told me one night. Why I let Rachel gaslight me about our marriage. Why I couldn't just come to you with the truth about my dad. I've spent my whole life learning to distrust my own judgment. And now I'm learning to trust it again. It's slow, but I'm getting there. James helped too. He shared stories about Sarah as a toddler, filled in memories she'd lost or never had. Showed her photos of herself, birthday parties, first steps, ordinary moments that Margaret had hidden away or destroyed. He was patient with her anger and her grief, never pushing, always present. He's the father I needed 30 years ago, Sarah said. But he's also the father I need now. Is that weird? No. I think healing isn't linear. Sometimes you have to go back to move forward. We started talking about kids, something we'd shelved years ago when Sarah was ambivalent and I was focused on the startup. Now, with her family history recontextualized, she wanted to process what kind of parent she might be. I'm scared I'll repeat my mother's patterns, she admitted. The control, the manipulation, the lies. Recognizing the pattern is how you break it. You have a lot of faith in me. I've seen who you are when you're not drowning. I know what you're capable of. By February, we'd settled into something resembling routine. Not the old routine we'd learned too much, changed too much, but something better, more intentional. We had date nights. Not fancy, sometimes just pizza and Netflix, but consistent, sacred. We talked, really talked, about feelings and fears and the little resentments that could fester into something bigger if left unexamined. We fought sometimes too. Real arguments about real things, money, household labor, whose turn it was to deal with the dog's vet appointment. But we fought fair, fought clean, fought our way to resolution instead of destruction. And slowly, the story stopped being about betrayal and started being about resilience. One Sunday in March, Sarah's phone rang with an unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Hello. A pause. Mom. I watched her face go through emotions, settling finally on something like sad resignation. She walked into her studio, and I gave her privacy, though I stayed close enough to hear if she needed me. The conversation lasted 20 minutes. When she emerged, she looked exhausted. She wants to meet, to talk. She says she's been in therapy and she realizes how much she hurt me. Sarah laughed bitterly. 3 months. It took her 3 months to even try. Do you believe her? I don't know. Part of me wants to. Part of me thinks it's manipulation. Part of me just wants a mother who isn't a black hole of need and lies. She collapsed on the couch. I told her I'd think about it, that I needed to talk to my therapist and my husband before I decided anything. What does your gut say? That I'm not ready, that maybe I'll never be ready, but also that I'll always wonder what if I don't at least try. She looked at me. Is it stupid to want a relationship with someone who's hurt you this badly? It's human, complicated, maybe unwise, but human. What would you do? I'd set very firm boundaries. I'd meet in public with a time limit. I'd make it clear that this is a trial, not a reconciliation. And I'd be ready to walk away if she can't respect those terms. Sarah nodded slowly. I think that's right. I think that's what I need to do. She met Margaret 2 weeks later at a coffee shop downtown. I drove her but stayed in the car, available but not hovering. She was inside for 45 minutes. When she came out, she looked drained but not destroyed. How was it? I asked. Honest, I think. She apologized. Really apologized. Not the defensive justification version. She acknowledged what she did and why it was wrong. Sarah buckled her seatbelt. But she also made it clear that she did it partly because she was terrified of losing me. And I realized that's still her pattern. She's still operating from fear and control. The difference is now she can name it. Is that enough? It's a start. We're going to try monthly coffee dates, supervised by caffeine and time limits. She smiled a little. My therapist says it's healthy that I'm approaching this with realistic expectations instead of either blind hope or complete rejection. Your therapist is earning her fee. Damn right she is. Life continued. Spring came, and with it cherry blossoms and longer days and a sense of having survived something. The startup integration was going well. Sarah was thriving in her new role. James had found an apartment in Portland and was talking about staying permanently. And then, one random Tuesday in April, Sarah came home early from work, sat me down and said, "I want to have a baby." My heart jumped. Really? Really? I've been processing this for months, and I think, no, I know I'm ready. I know what not to do. I know what patterns to avoid. And I know that with you, with my dad, with the support system we've built, I can do this. We can do this, I corrected. We can do this. We started trying that month. It took 6 months. 6 months of hope and disappointment and learning patience all over again. But in October, Sarah woke me up at 5 in the morning, holding a pregnancy test with shaking hands. 2 lines, she whispered. Jake, there's 2 lines. I've never seen her smile like that. Pure joy, untainted by fear or doubt or the shadows of her past. We told James first. He cried. Then Emma and Marcus. Then, after much debate, Margaret. I want her to know, Sarah explained. Not because I trust her completely, but because I want our child to have the option of knowing their grandmother. If Mom can maintain boundaries and respect limits, maybe there's space for her in this new life we're building. It was quintessentially Sarah, hopeful without being naive, protective without being paranoid. She'd learned to hold complexity, to reject both or thinking in favor of yes, and the pregnancy was normal. Textbook, even. We painted the nursery, sage green, gender neutral, and argued over names and bought too many tiny clothes that made no logical sense. Sarah documented everything. Belly photos, pregnancy cravings, the way Kane started sleeping with his head on her stomach like he knew something was growing there. James built a crib from scratch, spending weeks in our garage with wood and tools and patient precision. I missed your childhood, he told Sarah. I want to be present for every moment of my grandchild's. Margaret came to baby showers but kept her distance, respected boundaries, seemed to genuinely be trying. It wasn't perfect. There were moments of tension, old patterns threatening to resurface, but Sarah held firm, and slowly, carefully, they built something that resembled a relationship. Rachel sent a gift. Expensive bassinet with a note. Congratulations. I'm sorry for everything. I hope you're happy. Sarah stared at the note for a long time. Do you think she means it? Does it matter? I don't know. Part of me wants to believe people can change. That she's gotten help, done her work, become different. And the other part? Remembers that she forged my signature on divorce documents and tried to destroy my marriage because she couldn't stand to see me happy. Sarah donated the bassinet. Wrote Rachel a brief thank you but didn't open the door to further contact. Some bridges don't get rebuilt, and that's okay too. Our daughter was born on a Tuesday in June. 8 pounds, 3 ounces, with Sarah's dark hair and eyes that might be blue or might be brown. Too early to tell. We named her Eleanor Ellie, after James's mother, the grandmother Sarah had never known. In the hospital, I watched Sarah hold our daughter, watched James hold his granddaughter, watched 3 generations of healing happen in real time. She looks like you, James said to Sarah, tears streaming down his face. You looked exactly like this when you were born. I remember. His voice broke. I remember everything. Sarah reached for his hand. You're here now. That's what matters. Later, after visitors had left and it was just us, Sarah nursed Ellie while I sat beside them. This little family we'd almost lost and somehow saved. Remember when you thought I was cheating? She said softly. Vividly. And you followed me to Bend? Not my finest hour. I disagree. I think it was perfect. Because you could have just served me with divorce papers like you planned. You could have let your worst assumptions win. But instead, you investigated. You sought truth. She kissed Ellie's head. You chose us, even when you weren't sure there was an us to choose. I chose hope over certainty. That's marriage, isn't it? Hope over certainty. Faith over proof. Choosing again and again to believe in something you can't fully verify. Ellie made a small sound, already done nursing, content and sleepy. I took her from Sarah, held her against my chest, felt her tiny heartbeat against mine. Your mom tried to destroy your family, I said quietly. Rachel tried to destroy ours, but they failed, because love isn't fragile like they thought. It's resilient. It bends. It breaks sometimes, but it also heals. Spoken like a man who's been in a lot of therapy. Best decision you never wanted me to make, remember? She smiled, exhausted and radiant. Top 5 easily. We sat there in the hospital room, this family that almost wasn't, and I thought about all the ways the story could have ended differently. If Veronica hadn't warned me, if I'd trusted my assumptions, if Sarah hadn't had the courage to confront her mother, if we'd let other people's toxicity poison what we'd built. But we didn't. We chose differently. We chose hard and messy and imperfect, but we chose each other. And that, I realized, was the real story. Not the betrayal that almost happened, but the faith that stopped it. Not the marriage that nearly ended, but the one we consciously decided to continue, eyes open, hearts willing. Hey Jake. Sarah was almost asleep. Thank you. For what? For not giving up. For following me to Bend instead of just assuming the worst. For trusting that my love for you was real even when I was drowning. She opened her eyes. For staying. Always, I said, meaning it. For better or worse, remember? I remember. Ellie stirred in my arms, and I looked down at this tiny person who existed because 2 imperfect people had chosen imperfect love over perfect doubt. Because we'd investigated instead of assumed. Because we'd been brave enough to stay confused instead of certain. Outside, Portland was waking up. Cars starting, coffee brewing, ordinary people beginning their ordinary days. And here we were, this unlikely little family, beginning something extraordinary. Not because we'd avoided crisis, but because we'd survived it. And that made all the difference.
Wow. That was an incredibly intense and emotional story. Thank you for trusting us and sharing such a personal and painful experience with such honesty. Your journey, from betrayal, humiliation, and heartbreak, to reclaiming your life and dignity, is truly powerful, and I know it will resonate with many of our viewers who have faced similar struggles. To everyone watching, this story is a reminder of the strength we all have inside us, even in the darkest moments. If Michael's story moved you, made you think, or helped you reflect on your own life, I encourage you to leave a comment below. Share your thoughts, your experiences, or simply your support, it all matters. And don't forget to subscribe to When She Broke Us for more raw, real, and unfiltered stories of betrayal, resilience, and personal growth. Every story here reminds us that even through pain, there's a way to reclaim our power and dignity. Thank you for watching, and remember, your strength is greater than any betrayal, and your voice deserves to be heard.